Hello everyone, welcome to the Cinema Analysis channel. I am Juzo. This channel will explore the hidden truth of films that are not usually revealed. Today I'd like to talk about Fukushima 50. This time I'd like to talk about the film itself and also about why the nuclear power plant in Fukushima was built. I suggest you watch the film first. So let's get started. So did you see the film? What I'm about to say is a little different from a review of the film itself. However, watching the film will be a valuable experience to help you understand the horror of a nuclear accident. If you haven't seen it yet, please watch it. This film is set to show almost exactly what happened in reality. At 2:46 p.m. on the 11th of March 2011, an earthquake of unprecedented magnitude struck the northeastern part of Japan. Japan is a country with a lot of earthquakes. Japanese people aren't surprised when they are shaken, even if it's strong enough to surprise foreigners. But most people soon realize that this was an unprecedented quake. The tremors were strong enough to lift furniture off the floor. And normally quakes don't last more than a minute, but this one lasted 2 minutes and 45 seconds. The weaker quakes lasted longer, and the shaking went on for a long time. The blackout, which is rare in Japan, was widespread. Gas and water supplies were cut off, and huge houses collapsed. But the people who really suffered were those who live by the sea. A tsunami just 1 meter deep can kill people. The highest tsunami in the disaster reached 40 meters. The dead and missing in the disaster are more than 18,000, and more than 22,000 people seem to be dead, including the deaths related to the disaster. And at 3:27 p.m. after the quake, the tsunami hit the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The plant was built 10 meters above sea level. They hadn't expected a tsunami of that height. But the height of the tsunami was enough to cover the entire building. Tsunamis hit the plant several times. Typically, nuclear power plants have multiple safety systems that respond to problems as they occur. But all the power, including the external power source and the emergency power source, was lost. It was the station blackout that happened for the first time in the world. In pitch darkness, the workers continued their work with a torch. But there are many instruments that don't work without electricity, so it was difficult to understand the situation. As the power source was lost, the cooling system stopped working and the temperature of the nuclear fuel rose. Only a few hours after the loss of power, the meltdown began. It has become clear that the pressure in the reactor vessel has become very high. If it explodes, a huge amount of nuclear material will be released. The whole of eastern Japan will be contaminated. To prevent this, the pressure has to be relieved by venting. But as the power source has been lost, this has to be done by hand. The workers had to enter the areas with high radiation levels. The desperate operation was carried out. Despite this, the temperature of the reactor hardly dropped, and hydrogen explosions occurred twice. After that, the cooling process by pouring in water continued. The temperature gradually dropped and the danger of the nuclear fuel dissolving was averted. Later, the government announced that the reactor had achieved cold shutdown and reached a stable condition. This film can be said to be the work that reached a high level as a panic film. There is a terrible tension from the beginning to the end. The phrase, "the story based on the fact," was displayed at the beginning. This means that the dramatization was added to the fact. There are parts that are different from the fact. Many people criticize it. It is a work that depicts the important event and is meant to leave a memory for later generations. This is a subject that is not suitable for adaptation for the sake of its understanding or entertainment value. The main criticism is that the behavior of the Prime Minister in the film differs from the facts. Just like in the film, Naoto Kan, the Prime Minister of Japan at the time, visited the plant the day after the disaster. That is a fact. He was strongly criticized that the head of the nation should never visit the danger zone himself in terms of crisis management. The Prime Minister himself explained that the reason for his personal visit was that the situation of the accident was not clear. He was told that the venting would be done, but hours passed after he was told, and there was no reports that the venting had been done. The government's correspondence has to be changed according to the situation. The correspondence with the nuclear plant itself should be done by the electricity company, but the evacuation of the people living in the area should be done by the government. He describes that the reason he went to the plant himself was because he could not get any information. Although there was a problem in his behavior as the head of the nation, there was also such a background. But in the film, the Prime Minister seems to be simply losing control and becoming upset. And although in the film, the official residents seem to have ordered the plant to stop venting, this isn't the case. Rather, the official residence was hoping that the venting would be completed as soon as possible. And the explosion happens during the Prime Minister's visit to the nuclear plant. The explosion did happen. At 3:36 p.m. on the 12th of March, there was a hydrogen explosion in Unit 1. The Prime Minister was upset. But in reality, the Prime Minister visited the nuclear plant early in the morning and left at 8:05 a.m. Thus, the portrayal of this part in the film is a fiction. The Prime Minister in the film does not act rationally at all. This is because the role of the Prime Minister in the film is that of a troublemaker. The existence of a troublemaker who makes the situation worse is necessary in panic films and so on. That's why the Prime Minister was portrayed that way in the film. But in the film, the facts should not be distorted so easily for the sake of entertainment value, given the importance of the incident to be dealt with. You don't report it so as not to make your boss angry. It makes the situation worse. This kind of thing happens everywhere, not just in nuclear accident. The important role of stories will also be to portray the structural failure of human society. If the fact was expressed in an easy to understand way, the expression would have been profound. The reason I made this video is not just to introduce the film. I also want to talk about why the Fukushima nuclear plant was built. I have to unravel the modern history of Japan to talk about it. I have to go back in history. How far back do I have to go? Let's go back to 1867. It will be connected with the event of 2011. It is widely known that it was the samurai who ruled Japan in the old days. The entity that ruled Japan from 1603 to 1867 was the Tokugawa shogunate, the powerful organization of samurai. It can be said that Japan at the time many nations existed under the Tokugawa shogunate, which is almost a federal government. Japan had maintained a policy of few foreign relations called sakoku. It does not mean not to do foreign affairs at all. It is just to do foreign affairs when you want to do them. But there is a concern that the sakoku policy is becoming impossible. In 1781, a man named Hayashi Shihei wrote a book called Military Defense of a Maritime Nation. In the book, he wrote about the possibility of Russia invading Japan. The foreign countries will improve their military power with Japan knowing in its Sakoku, and they will invade Japan. The book describes that the only way to prevent this is to strengthen the navy, but it was forbidden to be published because it would scare the Japanese people. But it will be nothing to distract you from reality. It was in 1853 that the Japanese became aware of reality. The USA came to Japan with their steamship carrying a cannon. Japan, surrounded by the sea, was protected by the sea. However, the advent of the steamship enabled long-distance cruising. The sea that had protected Japan changed to attract foreign countries easily. Crisis awareness was born among the Japanese people. How can we protect our country? There was a great debate in Japan. To simply explain what happened afterwards, the Tokugawa shogunate insisted on something close to maintaining the status quo, and there were people against it, and then the war broke out. The people who opposed the Tokugawa shogunate were the samurais of the Choshu domain, now Yamaguchi prefecture, and the samurais of the Satsuma domain, now Kagoshima prefecture. These samurais are called Sacho. Great Britain supported Sacho. France supported the Tokugawa shogunate. The end of the samurai era in Japan began to resemble a proxy war between Britain and France. This samurai war is called the Boshin War. The samurais in the northeast of Japan sided with the Tokugawa shogunate. There had been no war in Japan for almost 250 years after the Tokugawa shogunate had united Japan, and the samurais had become like bureaucrats. There were many samurai who had forgotten how to fight. When the movement to defeat the Tokugawa shogunate arose, they were forced to suppress the rebellions. The one who took on this role was Matsudaira Katamori, the leader of the Aizu domain. The Aizu domain was located in present-day Fukushima prefecture. In 1862, Matsudaira Katamori took office as Kyoto Shugoshoku. The role is to maintain the security of Kyoto, which was the capital of Japan at the time. Under Katamori, special units were created. The most famous is the Shinsengumi. The fierce battle between the special forces like the Shinsengumi and the group that wanted to defeat the Tokugawa shogunate arose. In 1868, the Boshin War broke out. The situation turned into a full-scale war. The groups that fought with Tokugawa shogunate were the samurais in northeast area of Japan, the samurais of the Aizu domain and other samurais in northeast area of Japan supported Tokugawa shogunate. The peculiarity of the Sacho army was that many farmers or citizens who were not samurai joined it. Although they are not professional of battle, they overwhelmed the army of Tokugawa shogunate because they had the Western newest weapon. Something like the film The Last Samurai occurred. The era in which the power of the weapons is more prioritized than professional skills of each individual started. The following year, Sacho won the battle and Tokugawa shogunate lost. After that, Japan became a country ruled by the new government. The new government was mainly made by the people from where Yamaguchi prefecture or Kagoshima prefecture is now. The political system they made is still going on. It is quite important. The prefecture that has produced the most prime ministers is Yamaguchi prefecture, 8. The next is Tokyo, the capital of Japan, 7. The next is Kagoshima Prefecture, 5. The reason for this is that Yamaguchi and Kagoshima have created the current system of government in Japan. The Tokugawa shogunate and its allies are their enemies. They want to supply the capital Tokyo with enough electricity. They want nuclear power plants to do this, but they want to build nuclear power plants as far away from Tokyo as possible because it is dangerous. There's a view that in Europe, nuclear power plants are built near cities. The closest nuclear power plant to Berlin in Germany is the Rheinsberg nuclear power plant, which is 77 kilometers from Berlin. The Nogent nuclear power plant, the closest to Paris in France, is about 94 kilometers from Paris. The closest nuclear power plant to Tokyo is the Tokai No. 2 plant, built in Ibaraki Prefecture, 119 kilometers from Tokyo. The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant is 224 kilometers from Tokyo. The Fukushima plant is owned by the Tokyo Electric Power Company. The electricity to be used in Tokyo, not Fukushima, was produced in Fukushima. The nuclear power plant was built in Fukushima. Why was the nuclear plant built in Fukushima? You may have noticed. It is because Fukushima was the enemy of Sacho, who created today's Japanese government. Of course, this is not the view that the current Japanese government officially endorses. There's no way they'd say that, but given the historical facts, it is reasonable to recognize so. After the disaster of 3/11, the supply of electricity, water, and gas was cut off. Although there are differences from area to area, it took a week to 20 days to restore electricity, 10 days to a month to restore water, and 1 month to 2 months to restore gas. There is a newspaper company called Kahoku Shimpo. It is based in Sendai City, Miyagi Prefecture, which was hit by the disaster. Their servers went down and it became impossible to produce their articles. Electricity was cut off and they could not move their printers. Kahoku Shimpo sent the staff to the newspaper company in Niigata Prefecture and had them produce the articles and send them to Sendai, where they moved the printers by private power generation and printed their newspaper. The word Kahoku in Kahoku Shimpo is derived from the word a mountain north of Shirakawa worth 100 mon. Shirakawa is a sekisho that existed in Shirakawa City in Fukushima. Sekisho is something like a customs house that exists on the border. Mon is a unit of currency at the time. 100 mon was worth about 1,000 yen to 1,500 yen. It means that it is worth less than $10. It is a contempt that says that northeastern area of Japan is so worthless. The spirit to rebel against the contempt made the newspaper company. Kahoku Shimpo's business credo is unbridled independence, Tohoku revitalization. There's no doubt that they have a rebellious spirit against the ruling system of today's Japan. The average lifetime of a nuclear power plant is between 30 and 40 years. The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant started operating in 1971. It was in operation for 40 years before the disaster struck. As Japan is a country with the most earthquakes, they should stop using nuclear power plants after a shorter period than average. The closest nuclear power plant to Tokyo is the Tokai No. 2 plant, built in Ibaraki Prefecture, 119 kilometers from Tokyo. Ibaraki Prefecture was once the site of the Mito domain. The Mito domain is a domain belonging to the Mito Tokugawa family, the branch family of Tokugawa that ruled Tokugawa shogunate. Matsudaira Katamori is also from the branch family of Tokugawa. It can be easily imagined the existence of the nuclear plant in Fukushima or Ibaraki has something to do with the Boshin War. Similar things seem to happen all over the world. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant started operating in 1978 and caused the accident in 1986. The location is Pripyat, Kiev Oblast, Republic of Ukraine. Federal Soviet Socialist Republic, Ukraine at present. Wherever you live, similar incidents will have happened, and it might be interesting for you to investigate such things. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe and give me thumbs up.